Salutations, race fans, motorsport lovers, and others. We apologize for the delay on the YouTubes. There was stuff happening, but the gremlins got gremlin, and we're here tonight. We talk about Tankwa, a magnificent cross-country rally in very close to Sutherland in the Northern Cape. The race headquarters is at Rooipoort, and for the first time in a number of months, we bring back a quarter of our Dakar team from early in the year, from somewhere on the southern tip of the Eastern Cape, close to the dolphins and the sea. We've got Stephie Vetter. Stephie, how's it? And thanks for joining us.
Hello, Colin. Hello, Fritz. Hello, Henk. It is so good to be back in the hot seat, and I cannot wait to talk about the Tankwa and the cross-country rally and the mystique and the majesty of the Great Karoo. And yes, between Sutherland and that other place, that's where we're going tonight. I cannot wait, Colin.
I think it's absolutely fantastic. Andrew Horne couldn't be with us tonight. He's busy preparing race cars, so I'm going to try my best to answer your questions and stuff between YouTube and Facebook. Please be patient with us. We'll get it done. The picture behind us came directly from very, very close to Nowhere Fountain. It is a desolate area. The Northern Cape is a province in South Africa that is bigger than Germany. 2.8 people per square kilometer. I want to meet the midget, the 0.8 of a guy. But serious stuff. Tonight we are joined by Clive Crouse, who's the organizer and founder of Tankwa Cross Country Rally. Johan de Villiers, CEO of First Technology Group, naming partner. And remember, we love naming partners and sponsors of racing, and we support them because they make racing work. So a big thank you to Johan of First Technology. And we also have Kim Rew, an Olympian, a racer on bikes, a mountaineer, and she described herself as a bit of a nutter. And we have a virtual Stuart Gregory, because Stuart Gregory is practicing for Dakar. So without further ado, welcome to Clive, Johan, and Kim. Guys, thanks a lot for joining us.
Cheers, thank you.
Evening.
Thanks, Colin. Good to be here.
And for all the many viewers, feel free to put your questions and comments and things that you want to know. We'll try and get to them and answer your questions about what promises to be a magnificently tough, awesome adventure. So, Johan, first of all, Clive, first of all, why and how the hell did you come up with this idea of a Tankwa rally for bikes?
Thank you, Colin, first of all, to Race Day, and for Stephie for this, and colleagues here with us tonight. Yes, Colin, I've raced quads competitively since 2005. I enjoyed the national circuit for a number of years. I particularly enjoyed the longer distance school type of off-roads, as we used to call them. And a race that ticked my box one year was...
Johan, first of all, Clive, first of all, why and how?
So I did the Toyota 1000 one year, and then I did the Namakwa Rally, I think in 2014, and I liked the idea of having a race with a central race quarters or race control with cloverleaf loops running out there. And then one day I was driving through the Karoo to a friend's farm, and where we operate from today, when I saw it, I said, well, why not this? The vast expanses, there's not a lot of people around, and the ruggedness. So we took it from there and started to look into the possibilities of contacting people, and that's what sparked it. We built a fairly good relationship going forward with the landowners, and it's still work in progress, but it's come a long way.
It's quite cool that in such a desolate area that you can build an event, and we'd love to be there later this year, but from everybody that I've spoken to about it, there's a mystique and a mega challenge, and it's almost otherworldly.
I think that's what it catches everybody's imagination. It's rugged, but it's beautiful. I don't know of any other place in Southern Africa that is as rugged as this. Possibly the Richtersveld, but it's still drier where they are, and it just the only thing it doesn't have is sand dunes, but it's got everything else. That's for sure.
It's except people. And Johan, First Technology Group, mega IT group in South Africa. You're a helicopter pilot. Now you're a bike racer. How did you get involved in Tankwa, and what's the specialness about it for you?
So I've been racing bikes for 25, 30 years. I actually started my first enduro, I remember, in Montague with Alfie Cox in the late 1990s, when Kawasaki was still a green thing. But when I met Kim in the early 2000s, when she was busy with her Olympic campaign, I was much more in the 4x4 and the overlanding fraternity. As a matter of fact, we used to race 4x4s for SA 4x4 magazine, the Spirit of Africa, the Land Rover G4 Challenge, etc., etc. So we actually jointly started on a challenge to climb the global 7 summits, the highest mountains worldwide. And in order to stay fit, we started doing off-roading again on our scramblers. And Clive at the time was the chairman and founder of the Western Cape Off-Road Club. So we started doing the off-roads with Clive, and Clive mentioned this Tankwa Rally thing about 5 years ago. We went out, we did it for 3 days. It took us about 2 weeks to be able to stand up again afterwards. But the bug bit, and before the show started, you said that backdrop is something that the Mars rover took, a couple of days ago. But you couldn't actually be closer to the truth in terms of the remoteness and the ruggedness of that terrain. If you stand quietly anywhere, it is so remote and quiet that you can actually hear the lack of sound, if that makes any sense to you.
And you get a sense of the true majesty of the area that you're in with that sounds of silence.
It's a super humbling experience when you're in such a vast, rugged region, and you actually realize how fragile you are in terms of survival, because without radio comms, without water, whatever, things can go south very, very quickly. And I understand why the Dakar guys want to go and train there, because it must be very, very similar to the terrain and the conditions in Saudi. So from a professional perspective, we like getting involved as a sponsor because of the other things that Clive does there with the Tankwa. It's not just for the petrol heads in terms of off-roading and the rally guys, but and Clive can touch on it a little bit later, but there's a huge amount of things that Clive gets involved in the background that he doesn't like talking about, including supporting the farmers there during the drought, and uplifting the local schools and the communities there, through the sponsorship of IT and tablets, etc. So maybe you want to pin him a little bit on that, because he never makes any noise about what he does behind the scenes, never mind the racing side. So professionally, it speaks to our ethos as a company, what he does. And personally, it speaks to me in terms of the survivability, the navigation, and the endurance of the event. So I can only hope that it scales further and it actually becomes a pre-qualifier potentially with the FIM for Dakar itself, especially with the Amageza being not being discontinued in South Africa.
Yeah, Stephie, you need to come in and help me, because I'm fascinated by. I said, Kim, you're a little bit of a nutter, but I have immense respect. An Olympian, a mountaineer, climbing. Stephie, just help me out here, because I'm blown away.
Colin, just going back on what Johan was just saying as well, this is our backyard. Claire and I absolutely adore the Karoo. I mean, we've been in and out of the Karoo so many times, because literally somewhere down on the ocean we are. silence is so thick, it gets into your soul. So I 100% understand what Johan is saying, and that is what the Tankwa Cross Country Rally is all about. But then add the fierce adrenaline of racing in this bare, barren, mad mystique. The mystique of the Karoo is something else to behold. But Kim, I'm absolutely blown away by your accomplishments and representing women in sport, and not just motorsport. I'm just going to rattle these off. You've completed 5 Tankwa cross-country rallies. You've been first in gold class ladies and in the last Tankwa 219, the Western Cape Off-Road Champion Ladies Class 218, WCOC Sportsman of the Year, Amageza 217. You've summited Kili, Mount Aconcagua, Elbrus in Russia. You've ice climbed all the major glaciers in Iceland. Oh my word, Kim, what drives you and why the Tankwa?
Thanks, Stephie. It was really good to be on the show. Stephie, what drives me, I think I've always been drawn towards extreme sports. What you left out there was I spent a number of years also paddling, both surf ski and canoeing, and that was a big part of my life as well, and doing long distance paddling, so sort of 3-4 days out in the ocean. So I've always been drawn towards these sort of extreme adventurous sports, and I think Tankwa is just one of those. It's one of those events where you go out there and you're on your own, and you're in this most amazing place that anyone who looks at a picture would say, oh my gosh, that is just so wild, and it is just so extreme, and that's exactly what it is, and that's what's so exciting. And you get out there and you know that you have got to have prepped yourself properly. There's no sort of going out there and being half ready and hoping that the bike's okay and hoping that you have enough water with you. It's proper preparation, and I think that's part of the whole drive. It's just that excitement of going out there and being able to survive that on your own. I think Tankwa is probably one of the most extreme motorsports that we've got in the country at the moment, and that's really exciting. I've always had this sort of saying in my sporting career of this mind and grind. So the longer and the harder it gets, the more excited I get and the more I enjoy it. So Colin called me a complete nutter, but it really is. So you just mind and grind, and it's all mind over matter. And Tankwa's a bit like that, where you're out there and you're out there for hours, well into the dark. And you haven't a clue where you are sometimes, because Clive's GPS tracks aren't always on track. But that's part of the fun.
That's not true, Colin. Okay. Can we edit that out? Was this right?
Yeah, no, we'll edit that out. Kim, I meant nutter with the absolute utmost of respect, because there's one thing, and Johan, you've got a problem, because with the things that she's done, she must have the most incredibly strong mind. And once she you set a goal, Kim, and it's just got to happen.
Absolutely. Colin, not finishing a race is just not an option for me, and poor Clive knows that I will just keep going, and those officials just have to keep waiting. That we will finish, yeah. And that's what's been so awesome about this event.
Clive,
Kim,
go,
sorry,
Stephie.
Colin, just
Go.
in, because Kim has got the most. As I said earlier, I was so blown away. Kim, you paddled from East London to Port Elizabeth. Is that correct?
Correct, Stephie. I was the first woman to do that, which was at the time also just so exciting, because you're out there in a field of guys who, and it's really awesome. I mean, Tankwa's pretty much like that as well. It's just that camaraderie. It's that you rely on your fellow competitors for survival. If something goes wrong out there, you know that you might not be able to get hold of an official immediately, but you have to rely on those around you. So there's so many similarities into the types of sports I've done.
Yeah, talk about heels and horsepower, Kim. I mean, you're absolutely epitomizing that. I mean, it's just nuts. But, I really just want to touch on quickly before we move on. Tell us about the 2008 Beijing Olympics. I might get this wrong. Is it a Yingling? You were in the Yingling
Correct.
sailing team?
Yes, it's a Yingling. It's a type of keelboat that we don't actually have in South Africa. So it was a bit of a funny story. I mean, I was paddling competitively at the time, and I'd just come back from the Worlds in Australia, and a mate of mine who was putting together a campaign was looking for someone to do foredeck, and so I joined the team. And long story short, but I was a partner in a law firm at the time, and sort of well on the way into building my career, and then decided that it was time to take a gap from that. So I resigned my partnership, and we hit the road. The three of us hit the road. We hit Europe, we hit Miami, and we took 3 years off for a full-time campaign. I mean, it's a little bit like Dakar. You've got to throw everything at it. You've got to say, this is what I'm doing. It's costing me everything, but that's what I'm going for. And you give up what the other things in your life, and you focus on it. So for 3 years, we put everything into achieving this goal. It was a one shot at it. We qualified, and we were able to race at the Beijing Olympics, and it was absolutely amazing. So 3 years of my life, sailing full time and on the circuit around the world.
No wonder you love the love. It's no wonder you love the Tankwa, Kim. Colin, over to you. Let's hear more about Tankwa.
I was just going to say, it must have been a magic experience taking a foredeck. Mean that there's a crew of four?
No, foredeck means I'm on the front of the boat. We're a crew of three.
If it hasn't got tires and it doesn't suck, bang or blow, we...
Absolutely, but that's why you're in motorsport, Colin.
Yeah, there you go. Clive, this rally, this 3-day adventure, there's 300,000 hectares, which is, for those of you who don't know what a hectare is, it's murva big. So there's this massive area, the size of probably the whole of Great Britain. And you're now going to have this race through there. But you've got a central hub, the HQ. And is it daisy looping around there every day and coming back to the HQ?
Yes, Colin, mostly it is, except when the rally bikes go away to Sutherland for that day. But otherwise, mostly it is. And the reason for, first of all, we've got the space to do it. And the reason for that is we're trying to also make it affordable for the average off-road enduro rider that doesn't have a fully fledged rally bike with all its equipment on, which will start around about 500k. So you can come and also have a taste of it on his normal off-road cross-country bike. So by looping it around to central, let's call it HQ, you've got a reduction in logistic costs. You can imagine if you had to uplift everything each day and move on to another bivouac or whatever, the cost involved with that. So we're fortunate that we've been able to run the routes in that fashion. I call it a clover leaf fashion, most of it. Now and again we do a short out. But in actual fact, we're using closer, just there, we're using closer to about 400,000 hectares, of which all of it is privately owned. So it's been a long and a nice journey, meeting people and bringing some excitement to their communities at the same time. Now, but it's a cost factor.
Those communities, and Johan mentioned the work that you do with the communities. It's not just a case of you arriving and using all of their facilities, sort of go there, have fun and bugger off. You're building up the communities, you're growing, you're giving back into the people in the villages there.
Yes, as a whole, we've tried to, and a lot of members in the club, not just the sponsors. Of course, the sponsors carry the brunt of it, and the club does, but a lot of members have contributed in a lot of ways. And the one thing that struck me, I'm in farm machinery, that's my business, so I'm fond of farmers in general, but the drought struck me. It was the worst drought in modern history from 2016 to 2019. And we saw a deterioration go there. So a lot of the contributions have been drought aid to the farmers, finding feed from fellow farmers down south. And then the cost of getting it up there was quite a lot. Club members paid for it. Johan's business paid a lot of it. It was a desperate situation at one point towards the end of 2019 when wildlife starts to die from starvation or thirst. And then, of course, you saw the livestock, it just became less. So we just we got involved and did what we could, and it did make a difference. Then there's other little bits and pieces that we can do for them, and the little school there is quite close to our heart. And thanks again to Johan. I didn't know that their curriculum is actually all electronic. So when Johan came in, it was exactly the right time. And it's gone a long way to improve the schooling, for that matter. And we would like to continue doing our little bits and pieces, because after all, we get to ride on their property, and we need to respect that as well. And it's an amazing community. I mean, they're just such nice people across the Peru, yeah.
We spent some time at Hoxkie and Pan with the Bloodhound vehicle in the villages and people around there. There's a different attitude to life, a different reason for being, and a fantastic sense of helping, it's more than camaraderie. You're another human, so therefore you almost become part of the community.
Yeah, yes, Colin, if I may just add there quickly, little things like we have clothing collections and all of, those kind of things. You'd be surprised. It goes a long way. As hot as it gets there, I mean, in summer you're running in the 40s and upper 40s very often, and in the winter it gets just as cold. As you said, Sutherland's down the road. It really is, it's one or the other. And while we're just on it, that's why we do tend to race in September, where we're hoping to strike a moderate climate and the change of seasons. And then just the last thing to come back on having a central race control, we have, and I think we're going to touch on it later on, we have live tracking, competitor tracking. Everything is operating from there. And our contact with all of our officials, remember the officials are far out and they're driving far out, and is by high frequency radio, and it's working quite well. So it is better to have one central point. And the chairman of the local farmers union, he's our key man there, and all his helpers. He can tell me next to that old tire or drum, you've got somebody there or a problem there. We know the area very well. My team has been fantastic. This is not a one-man job. Henry, Robert, I don't want to mention, I'm going to leave names out, but there's a whole group of us that have committed a lot of time and know the area. But all the instructions go through one central race point. And I think it's the best way. Somebody has to make calls, otherwise.
You mentioned that team. Roughly how many people are in the team, the organizing team?
We're about 15 people approximately, if you take all the officials with it. And then there's the hardcore 7 or 8 of us that know the area well, because I can't just send somebody out if they haven't been there and know how to get there or get across and know the shortcuts. It's just too remote. If you left there on your own, you'll get lost, I promise.
It's not a case of we'll go down there at that crossroad, turn right, and then... I want to go... You touched a little bit on the race bikes and the adventure bikes. So you've got proper racers like Stuart Gregory and some of the other real proper race people. But then the other part, is that more like extreme adventurers extreme adventure riders who would be able to take part in it as well?
Colin, no, I would say you're more competitive off-road. I call it off-road or cross-country. You've got off-road or enduro. Yeah. But I would say you're mid-class mid-class. I mean, a guy that's reasonably competitive in the club class and the regional competitors, it's more for them. Adventure guys don't like to bend and scratch their bikes. Tankwa's not really, the race is not really there unless you don't mind using some chrome.
I'll tell you what we've got to do then is speak to Ian Pepper. We were talking about Kawasaki's earlier. So Ian Pepper and Peps and Plastics have brought Kawasaki back to cross-country racing for bikes. We've got to speak to him and get those green machines there. Stephie, there's something that you wanted to go with about training.
The logistics of the race, Clive, and then we're going to go to Johan and Kim, because I really want to talk more about this Mars type terrain. Clive, are all the outside DSP refuels assisted? Give everybody a bit more insight in terms of that. So you've got a newbie coming along, they don't know anything about Tankwa. Are they assisted?
Stephie, no, not all of them, for the simple reason we cannot have service crews and traffic going into areas where there's racing taking place. But certain ones are, where they can get help in a designated service point, DSP. They can get help from their crew to change tires and that, but they do get a list beforehand, and the planning is up to them to make sure that's correct. The refuels, they also get a list. If they want to try and skip one, we give them exact distances in between, but then they do need to calculate a bit of safety margin in case they got lost somewhere or had some other problems. So yes and no, and we give that out on the riders briefing the night before, so that they need to start making their own calculations. But we can't allow traffic just to follow the race and get in amongst the riders. So they would come in at a road crossing or at various vantage points.
There's a road crossing in the middle of nowhere? I'm being facetious.
For the sheep.
I've just got to have say hello to Johan Becker, who is watching us. Dion Duplessis says, Tankwa brings your soul back to nature, where we are one. And Stuart White, how's it to you? So, I mean, I'm getting excited about this thing because there's just so much about it. And Stephie, Johan, you spoke about the tracking and the live tracking. Why? Just tell us a little bit more about it and why it's so important.
So obviously, in terms of doing an endurance race of 1,200 kilometers through the desert unassisted by yourself, there's the obvious things that you have to look after in terms of your own fitness, nutrition, working out your fuel averages, distance, etc., etc. But I think two things that racers sometimes overlook is mechanical sympathy for the machine itself, because if that steed doesn't take you out of that desert, you are not getting out of that desert. And in the 5 years that we've done Tankwa, I have never seen so many machines blow up. I'm not going to mention brand names because I won't make it out of the building, but I do like orange. But I've never seen so many machines blow up in a race because of a lack of mechanical sympathy or lack of planning in terms of pre-preparation on the machine. So you have to look after the beast that you sit on as much as you look after the human body. The second thing is that we've done many other races in South Africa, and in 2017 I had to do a shoulder op. So I was relegated to what they call pit bitch for Kim because I couldn't race. And she entered the Baja 1000 Amageza in Port Nolloth, Alexander Bay, with the late Alexander Nell. And we had a situation where, unfortunately, one of the riders passed away in Kim's arms in the middle of the desert. And it took hours for paramedics to get there because the paramedics were using the wrong GPS, latitude, longitude GPS format. Nearly 2 hours to get to the injured rider before he passed. And the number one problem there was that there wasn't live tracking. So one of the things that really attracted me to Clive's cross-country Tankwa is that he's got live GPS tracking on every single rider, where they can see on a massive LCD screen at race headquarters where the rider is, whether he's stopped for more than 5 or 10 minutes, and what the closest proximity is in terms of either support or paramedics. It's world-class support for when something goes wrong, because everybody can have a jaw when nobody's injured, but when something goes wrong, in an area the size of Great Britain, and it's 48 degrees out there, the fun goes quickly. And I have to salute Clive for, and maybe you can talk a little bit about the live tracking, but I don't feel at risk sending myself or Kim out in that race, because we've been in a life-threatening situation before where riders have passed and where there wasn't live tracking. And I know it's a massive expense for Clive, but I think at that level of professionalism, it's a non-negotiable.
Clive, tell us a little bit more about the tracking. So each bike, and I believe also each of the officials and basically everybody who's involved in the event has got a tracking device on them, and you know where they are all the time.
Yes, Colin, we won't run the event without that, as Johan said, and it's supplied by, and if I may just mention, by African Stuff, Sorrel van der Walt, who's made the effort to come down beforehand and do signal tests, and it's done by satellite because there's not cell phone signal everywhere. There are Wi-Fi towers, but we also know where there's blind spots, so you can see if a competitor's entered the area and exited. Sorrel's got a very good in-depth knowledge, and I won't use anybody else because he understands racing, and he also understands and he doesn't panic. A simple thing, if you see a rider stationary and then you see other riders pottering around and they stay there for a long time, it's most likely to be an injury. But if they stop and they go, they probably said, "Oh, are you okay? Can we go?" And then, so he's taught us a lot how to understand it. And again, it comes back to the central race control. There's nobody that knows Tankwa better than Corny Talliot, who's the farmer's chairman. He's third or fourth generation there. He knows everything. He's like a bushman. He knows everything, and that is why I need him at race control. And we can see where our medics and our other officials are. We also know how to take shortcuts. We can get to competitors quickly. In fact, if we had to fly in an air ambulance, we can land them somewhere and still take them in 40 or 50 k's quicker than they can look for a landing place. We can put them down on the road and then take them in. So it's a whole coordinated teamwork. Guys like Henry, Robert, John Lanham, they know the area so well now. And it's functional, and it's a no-brainer. We just have to run that tracking. It does have a cost to it.
Yeah. Safety in racing it's not worth taking a risk. We value race drivers and racing people's lives. Now, day one, you're going sunrise to sunset, and then day two, you marathoning. Is that right?
Well, let me start on day two. The traditional marathon day is day two, and we start at HQ and we end up at HQ. And everybody does that, and that's a mixture of hardcore off-road, and some places, some riders claim some of the riverbeds are enduro. There are some open plains. So you're racing when you leave on day two, and you're racing hopefully you're still racing when you come across the finish line. So it's a tough day. It's a 570, 500, might even be 600 this year. Day of pure racing. You got your outside refuels on that. You fill, you go, you rehydrate. So that's a long day. Top riders are running, our real top riders are running about 8 to 9 hours. Kim will tell you need a headlight or one of those little LED lamps to come in a little bit later, but that's your race stage. But
well, 600 k's is a pucker good. A long Dakar stage. So it's proper.
Yeah, no, that is proper. It's doable too, because you do have your open sections and what have you. But it's a hard day on the bike. But the day one for the rally class, the off-road bikes will be different, doing different stages and with a break in between it on day one. But for the rally class this year, we tried it 2 years ago. We went up to Middelpos, Upper Pass, and it worked quite well and back. So we took them away on their own. They're also roadworthy, so they're entitled to ride on the district roads. So that's your liaison. I was up in Sutherland last weekend, and it's a definite go-ahead. So they're going to have a scenic liaison. It's quite long, probably 180 k's to Sutherland, thereabouts, but it's very scenic, and it takes them over pass. It's quite a spectacular pass. And then the special stage there, I haven't finalised it. And then they will liaison back over in a different route via Middelpos and Ghanagha back to HQ. So they are going to be on the bike from sunrise to sunset, that's for sure.
Bums are going to be
But that's
sore.
Well, that's what they need, and that's what they want. And it's navigation all the way. The liaison is on roadbooks, so they're going to have to navigate also to get there. There's a lot of crisscross roads, so we're going to test some of the navigation skills getting there and getting back.
Absolutely magic. Now, Stephie, one of your favorites is the macadamian farmer, another nutter, Stuart Gregory, and you spoke to him earlier during this week.
I would love to bring Johan and Kim back in here. Yes, I did. So Stuart can't be with us because he's actually kicking off his Dakar 2022 training. But before we get to Stuart, Johan and Kim, from a competitor's point of view, tell us about the terrain. We've heard about day one. We know that the rally bikes have got a different route. The off-road and the silver class will be closer to HQ. What makes Tankwa so tough?
So I interject.
Yeah,
So I always have a giggle at my Enduro only friends, does roof and etc. Because I think that the Tankwa Rally is a bunch of guys doing a lot of farm roads or Jeep tracks, and it couldn't actually be further from the truth. It is probably closer to 1,000-kilometer enduro than what it is to actual off-road racing. Yes, of course, there's long stretches of off-road racing, but there's some serious dry riverbed, rocky sections, and technical mountain terrain. I'll never forget Kim coming in one night late. It was pitch dark. The TV crews were waiting. The rest of the guys were having beers. And she was coming in on a petrol headlight because, KTM's, the Austrians don't know how to make headlights, unfortunately, for those bikes. So she said to me, when I came down that one mountain, I looked down and I thought it's going to be better if I just push the bike over and let it drop down and follow it, because riding down wasn't an option. And for her to make that comment puts it in perspective. I mean, the 1 year, last year, of course, because of COVID, there wasn't a full Tankwa. But the previous year, she came home where both her front forks actually blew out their seals on a bike because of the heat and the requirements of the technical terrain on the shocks. It's extreme, it's challenging. It's fantastic. I mean, we've been back 5 times, and I hope to do it another 5 times.
Absolutely.
I actually spoke to Stuart about this as well. Kim, tell us from your perspective, like we've heard Johan, I think he's being so humble because he's actually not telling us about his experiences.
Exactly.
But let's go, Kim. Why is it so tough?
So, Stephie, I think Johan has really hit the nail on the head. It's one of those races where you've got a bit of everything. Okay, granted, not dunes, but you really do have a bit of everything. You've got the long open stretches where you've just got to, open up and go fast. And then straight after that, you go straight into a technical section or a steep climb. Rock is just, rock is the middle name. There's rock everywhere. I remember the first one I did when I looked down the riverbed, a dried riverbed of just rocks, and looking at my GPS, which was telling me this is the way to go, and I actually couldn't believe it because there was no path. So for the next hour, so you're on a dry riverbed. So it's always something different. And that's what really makes it so exciting. The other thing about Tankwa is really the camaraderie. And as Clive said, you've got to be able to plan your race. You get the information the night before. You know where the refuels are. You've got to know your bike. You've got to know whether your bike can skip a refuel or not skip a refuel. I've come across someone in a race who's run out of fuel, and I had to tap off fuel from my bike to get him to the finish, and that's the camaraderie, which is really really awesome about the event. But you never know what's going to come. You don't know whether you're going to be in for another 20 k's of open road, or whether you're going to hit a mountain pass, and for the next hour you're going to be scrambling up rocks or down rocks. So that's what really makes it so exciting.
Yeah, Kim, Johan, from a Southern Africa Dakar point of view as well, this is what makes Tankwa so exciting for me, because obviously, Stuart's going to be racing this year. It's a training ground. It's his preparation for Dakar 2022. Let's hear what Stuart had to say about Tankwa as a training ground. Or not.
It's coming.
Stephie, if I can just add to that, I mean, the other part about Tankwa in terms of a training ground is the mental preparation. I think it's one of those places where the mental preparation that you need for something like Dakar, you get at Tankwa. You're out there on your own. You've got no communication. It's survival out there, and that's exactly what you need. You need to learn to be able to go for hours. It's not like anywhere else in the country that I know where you can get that kind of mental preparation.
So from a physical, we spoke about the mental stuff and the bike. Physically, how I know the answer already. It's muraba hard on your body, but how really hard is it on the body?
Colin, I mean, it's hard. I think the biggest mistake people can make is not being fit enough. If you go into that race underprepared, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it on the first night. You're going to wake up really sore on the second morning. You're probably going to wake up really sore on the second morning, even prepared, but hopefully a bit more comfortable. But it is hard. It's really hard on the body. It's rocky, so it's lots of bouncing, and it's long hours. You can be out there 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and that's a really long day on the body. So preparation for the body is also crucial. I can't stress enough to people, be fit enough, and then of course nutrition. Make sure you've got enough water and enough food to take you through the day, because by 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the evening, if you're still out there and you've still got a few more hours to go, you're gonna need to make sure you've got some proper food.
Clive, Dakar's got minimum standards in terms of amount of water that you've got to take with you and food and that sort of stuff. Do you also have a similar kind of rule for all the riders, that they have to carry a minimum of, say, 3 liters of water each?
Yes, Colin, we do. We work with the normal relations, but above that, at the halfway mark and at some strategic points, they do have particularly water for them on the marathon day, and like at Sutherland as well, we would have something for them when they arrive there or just before they leave there again. But yeah, the scrutineering is quite strict. We've actually upped our game. We were lenient in the beginning, but we've been trying to get them up to proper standard, and the safety is important. If they don't pass scrutineering, they have to go back and fix it. And the one thing we definitely check on the start line, that the camel packs are full. But it's also important for us. Otherwise, we've got casualties which drain our resources as well.
Yeah. And at the refuel points, does each competitor supply their own fuel in their own containers, or do you have like a central bowser that everybody comes and fills up and gets the same fuel?
They bring their own fuel, and we have bays the night before, and it's given out to them where the refuels are, so they can plan. They might only want to put 10 liters in a can, or 7 liters, or etc. So they put them in. The responsibility is on them. They get a map, say it's 5 outside refuels, and they place the cans in those bays, and we take that out, and they'll be ready for them before they get there.
And can you put a lunchbox in it? Can you put a lunchbox with it? Okay.
Yeah, you can put with it. You can put anything with it except alcohol.
Fuel for the body, fuel for the bike, and a spare tire, and off you go. It's brilliant. while Stephie and Fritz are just working out the discussion with Stuart, Clive, Clive, the bivouac, we know we've got these restrictions at the moment, but hopefully by then sanity will have returned, and we'd be able to have some handlangers, spectators, people coming to the bivouac as to support kind of thing.
Yeah.
Camp.
Yes, Colin, we do, and we see more and more people joining us. Adventure riders come to spectate. But to go back on the COVID thing, fortunately, space is not a problem for us there. We can spread out. We have ablutions on both sides. The road, the main road runs through the middle, a gravel road, and there's camps under the thorn trees on both sides with hot and cold showers.
And is there a flusher there? Is it a flusher or a drop and splash?
No, it's a flush toilet, a normal flush toilet, and wash bays for the bikes. And there's no Eskom power there, or there's none yet sometimes during the day. But
there's none here either.
but they're welcome to bring generators. We do have generators ourselves, but the campsites are very good, and we also have options of ordering tents with beds in them. We're going to up that. You're going to have a luxury one and a standard one. We always just had a standard one. It was like sleeping next to your bike. Or you can bring your own tent and a camping equipment. So, but to go back to the whole thing with COVID, there's enough space there. The spectator points, I can give you an idea. The R355, by the way, is the longest uninterrupted road between two towns in South Africa. Between Ceres and California, it's about 260 kilometers, 260 kilometers, straight gravel road. But, and we operate on both sides of that road. So there's a lot of loops where people can go out and spectate. When I say spectate, you've got lots of space. You don't need to stand on top of each other. You don't need to park next to each other. We also issue a map where they can go and can't go. So space is really, fortunately, not an issue when it comes to COVID. And obviously, we would expect people to adhere to the COVID protocols in terms of we might need to screen people. We screen all the riders anyway. The current circumstances. So I don't see it being a problem for us. The government might see it a different way, but we will operate under, we are MSA affiliated, and we will stick to those protocols.
Awesome stuff. So Stephie, Dakar training, Mr. Macadamian Nutman. Nuts for Dakar,
The
Stuart
most
Gregory.
exciting part about Tankwa is I still believe it's the perfect training ground for Saudi. I mean, the terrain is good. You don't have the dunes. Everything else we've heard, it's tough, it's hard. What did Stuart say? He's training for Dakar. Let's listen to what Stuart had to say about the training.
Yeah, the Dakar is tough, and yeah, going back for the third time, I think we're all a bit crazy, and my campaign is nuts for Dakar. I'm a macadamia nut farmer, but yeah, I'm a little bit nuts, and going back for the third time, I'm obviously a slow learner, but yeah, sponsors, we've been fortunate. A lot of people I deal with are back, and it's great to have Motor on board again, Fox, KTM Durban, and a few of the people I do business with are coming back in, so we'll confirm them as the season unfolds. Unfortunately, there's no major title sponsor, so we're always looking for that, and it's really tight and tough to get the budget and the money to go there. So yeah, we're always looking, and there's an opportunity to have title sponsor, and if anyone's looking, they can get hold of me.
Gotta love that, an opportunity for a title sponsor.
Absolutely. What Stuart and I were discussing is that although there are no dunes, the terrain is so rough. You've got long days in the saddle. I think, Clive, if I stand corrected, it's more saddle time than the TDR 1000.
I mean, there's blooming plenty saddle time there. I think Clive might have a glitch in the system there.
I think there's a glitch in the system, but it's all good.
Oh no, he's back. From comparing Tankwa to the desert race from a bike point of view.
Colin, I've ridden the desert race. It's also quite tough because for 2 days you've got to There's a bit of what Kim said earlier. You've got to concentrate the whole way. You can't relax, and concentration makes you tired on top of the physical thing. But I've looked at the ride times versus our ride times, and we're similar and a bit longer, I think, because in places we're technical and a bit slower. So, yeah, it's at least equivalent to that, and it offers this South African rider, cross-country rider, a chance to do a proper marathon event. It's the only one around in terms of MSA affiliated. And then, of course, you've got your rally class riders, but if from a normal off-road, it is our marathon event for Motorsport South Africa, and a tough one at that, and a good one.
Okay, and that's 24 to 26 September. When do the entries actually open?
They'll be opening soon, as soon as we've finished scouting the final parts of Sutherland. So they'll probably open in about, we're in March, in about April sometime.
And who are you expecting from okay, so we know Stuart Gregory's going to be there. Who else are the main mana who are coming to play?
Well, the top guys you normally only find out just before the event, like Kenny and Ross. You know, the phone normally rings just before. But hopefully, yes, we'd love to see them there again. Kenny had a very good event on his last one there. Unfortunately, Ross, he had mechanical problems on a bike he had borrowed, so he didn't want to risk it too much. And, you know, it's a shakedown for those towers and roadbooks on the bike. It's hard on them. But hopefully we'll see them. And Donnie's sitting on the fence, as we know. I think he wants to come. He's just got to get permission from his bosses, his wife, and where he works. So hopefully we'll see him. And then looking further forward, if I may just add, there's a couple of guys in the Western Cape that are training for Morocco, and they're looking longer term. If I may mention them, Willem Abenant is one, Mark Johnson's another. So you'll probably see them in 2 years' time or 3 years' time at Dakar, hopefully. And then Yuri Buerta's also training. And I wouldn't be surprised if a bug doesn't bite somebody like Martin Lawrence at some point. So there's 4 or 5 guys from just down here. I don't know all the other names up north. And if Brian doesn't give Tay a lift in the car, then maybe we'll see Tay back.
We need to get Alfie Cox's... We need to get Alfie Cox's boy in there as well.
Bradley.
Yes,
Clive, I just want to go one step back. So you are MSA affiliated. Obviously, I want to give a big shout out to Jilly. I'm sure you're watching. Hi, Jilly. You need to come down. You need to come to the rally. Where do you see Tankwa going from here? Where do you want it to go? Let's talk 2-3 years time.
Well, I know I have been talking to Jilly quite a lot, and obviously there's a lot of things, and it takes time to convince the powers that be. But I think the next step that we would like to see is that FIM Africa support the event. I'm not saying they don't support it, but officially, if it's a supported event by them, it would help us. And I've heard different reports that riders need to do 2 rallies before they can qualify for Dakar. Maybe Chile can help us after with that. But to go and travel and do 2 events, say in Morocco, is costly. But they could do possibly 1 year in South Africa and 1 in Morocco. So we would like to put it out there that we're capable of offering them a suitable event. That's for sure. There's obviously slightly different requirements. The rules are slightly different to us because we're running a bit of a hybrid, but that can be solved, you know.
Well, I know for one, Clive, we're going to be there this year. Southern Africa Dakar Group are going to be doing as much live work as we can. Claire will be keeping the fires going. We know that we're going to be staying in a certain bus of yours. Hopefully that race day will be with us.
We hope so as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see in the background over there, I'm tempting Team Zimbabwe to come down. I'd love to see Graham Sharp and some of the Zim guys coming down. So we're going to do everything in our power to also support local. It is a magnificent rally in the most beautiful setting. And I just wish you every success and from strength to strength, and we'll be supporting you guys every step of the way. Colin, put your proverbial on a block. Are race day going to be there?
Well, it depends. Basically, yes. No, we're 100%, because the Karoo
That
can like
sounds like
to.
a Zondo commission.
No. The Karoo can be, at least I didn't like the oak with a hat who says today, oh, I don't know. But anyway, let's not go there. There's a certain, Clive, are we allowed to bring like a camper truck and park it there and put a tent on the side and stuff? And what?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right,
That's what it's about. That's exactly part of the vibe.
now we need to negotiate with somebody, but we'll see him on Saturday. No, 100%. Dakar, race day will be there. We love adventure. We love the fact that you've got to put your balls on the line, your body on the line, and it's a massive adventure in a different place that needs somebody with a little bit of have a bit of be a bit of a nutter. So we're going to be there, and if we can do anything for anybody, just give us a shout. But the time is marching on, and I think we will talk again before the race, Clive, and congratulations to you and your team. Johan, I've got to say just again, thank you from the bottom of our hearts at race day, and probably from motorsport in South Africa. Thank you for putting effort and the funding and resources that you do into an event. First Technology. Guys, go and have a look on the interwebs and stuff and go and learn a little bit more about it and support companies that support racing. Kim, I've got to say to you, big respect, and this is going to be more than I do, but it'll be a little bit hotter than your walking on shrinking ice plains. So guys, thank you very much for joining us. I'm excited as hell. Stephie, look after the dolphins where you are, close to the ocean. Clive, Johan and Kim, thank you so much. And to our magnificent production team, to the transport team, logistics, legal were involved today. I'm very happy with them. And to Fritzy and Henk, thank you so much. And more than that, to you guys who've watched, thank you so much. Join us again some other time when we bring you some more things that suck, squeeze, bang, and blow. And remember, be kind to everybody out there. Thanks for watching. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Everybody.
Thank you. Good night.